Hello, pilgrims. Welcome to the Camino News Update. We are excited to be back with you. I'm Lee Brennan. I'm here in Tacoma, Washington. And look who we have with us, Johnny Walker Santiago. And he, of course, is in Santiago. Johnny,
Good
it looks like it's raining.
good morning, Lee. My friends in the Parador have allowed me to use the big royal dining room for this recording. As you can see, looking out onto the Plaza Obradoiro, the rain is beating down at the moment. The poor pilgrims are walking in the rain, and yesterday in hailstones as well.
Oh,
So
my goodness.
it's
How's
been
the
very.
temperature?
It's not, the temperature is not freezing,
Yeah.
but I don't like the cold, although I'm Scottish and I feel the cold. So we're down at in the morning times at this time of the morning about 5, 6 degrees, but it can go up to 18 degrees even in the rain.
Yeah. Oh, those pilgrims, boy, I feel for them. Well, you were just walking recently, but now it looked like you had good weather.
Well, yes, I spent a few days on the Portuguese coastal route, one of my most favourite routes, walking in and around Bayona, and it was gorgeous, and I had to put on sunscreen. And
No.
that was just a week ago. But of course, we're now in Holy Week. Palm Sunday was last Sunday, the week before Easter Sunday's next Sunday, and we've got a week of torrential rain. And
Oh,
of course,
no.
this is the week when the pilgrim numbers go up and up and up as pilgrims come into the city to spend
Right.
Easter in Santiago. So spare a thought for the poor sodden pilgrims walking in the rain.
No kidding. You've been quite busy with premieres of The Way, My Way all across North America. So tell us about the big trip you took.
Well, Bill Bennett, who made the film Me Way, My Way, invited me as a volunteer. Um, he said, "If I pay your flight, will you come to the United States and Canada and help us promote this film?" And it's a great pleasure. Although it's not glamorous at all, Lee. Let me assure you, because it's hard work. I arrived in New York, and that evening we were in Times Square for the premiere in New York. The following morning we flew to Toronto. The following morning we flew to Ontario. The following day we flew to Vancouver. Then we flew to Seattle, where I saw you. And then we get in a car and we drove to Portland. And thereafter we drove all across the United States. Um, the movie's doing very well, playing to packed cinemas. But I have to say, the pleasure for me is meeting all these other pilgrims.
Yeah.
And it's just like a huge albergue in the cinema with people. You can see it happening with people sharing their stories and so forth. And I took a supply of scallop shells with me that were blessed in the cathedral. And as a surprise to everyone, we had shell ceremonies at these screenings, including one beautiful young lady who stood up and said, "I'm 16 years of age, and having watched that movie, I'm going to walk the Camino next year." So I said to
Wow.
her, "Just come straight up to the stage here. Here is your scallop shell. I want you to deliver this to me in Santiago." And of course, the place went wild, and everyone shouted "Buen Camino."
Oh, wow. It
So
was
it was
amazing
lovely.
watching that. Yeah. Well, what did you think of being in the US? Have you ever spent this much time in the US?
Oh yes, yes, yes. And when I was in my teens, I
Yeah.
worked in I worked in the United States. I ran a weather station in a forest outside of Chicago for three
What?
months. Well, observing the weather observing the weather was one of my things in my you can imagine how boring that is. So I was in this forest working with what you would call the Forestry Commission, and there was a tower, and I sat on top of the tower with my machines
Wait, are
recording.
you pulling an April Fool's kind of joke on
No,
me?
no, no, not at all. That's the
I've
truth.
heard you
That's the
talk
truth.
about this.
And of course, my sister's American. She lives in Minnesota. Although
Right.
if you can imagine it, she's much older than me. And I've got family in the United States. And I'm very fond. I'm very fond of the United States. And I'm very fond of some Americans.
Yeah. I hope I'm in that list.
Oh, of course you are.
I will tell you this, I know so many people were so excited to finally get to meet you in person and get to meet Bill Bennett. People were just like, what do they call it, fangirling and fanboying, like people were just like, oh my goodness, it's them in real life. So it
Well,
was very
Lee,
exciting for people.
Lee, there were remarkable scenes
Yes.
in Ontario. I think it was minus 12 degrees, and there was a queue round the block. One cinema had 650 people in it. They had to bring in extra seats for the demand of pilgrims. And I think a lot of it is pilgrims wanting to come together as
Yeah.
well as see this new movie. So
Yeah, I agree. Well,
it was
here in
wonderful.
Tacoma, they actually played the movie another 2 weeks. And
Ah,
yeah, people were super excited about seeing it. So, yeah, and they announced that there's going to be a sequel, The Way, Her Way. So hopefully
yes.
we'll begin to hear about filming of that before too long.
Working on that as we speak.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about Easter week in Santiago. Anything special going on?
Anything special? This is the great week. And it started on Sunday when people go into their gardens and they cut branches and they come to church for the branches to be blessed, reenacting Jesus' entry into Jerusalem when he rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. And of course, that set up the events of that week. On Thursday, the Last Supper is celebrated. On Good Friday, Christ's crucifixion and entombment is celebrated. Saturday night, beginning with a bonfire which reenacts the fire of creation. Christ's resurrection from the death is celebrated. Then, of course, we've got glorious Easter Sunday. In many Spanish cities all over the country, people dress up and reenact these scenes of the entry into Jerusalem and the crucifixion and so forth. In Malaga, there are 50 of these processions that go on. Santiago is a much smaller place. We've only got 90,000 people. So
Right.
there are 13 of these processions. And of course, they started last Saturday, just before Palm Sunday. But with the weather, the procession last night, for example, had to be held indoors. So people were
Mm,
very disappointed.
yeah, what
So
a shame.
that's the shape of the week.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the costuming that's worn in the processions. For a lot of people, there's a little bit of a shock if you're not familiar with the outfits that are worn during many of these processions. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, funnily enough, a lady posted the other day, um, these people are dressed up like the Ku Klux Klan,
Yeah.
and the answer to that is no. The Ku Klux Klan have dressed up like these people. The
Yeah.
processions and the dressing up started in the 16th century, and of course, the Ku Klux Klan was not formed until the 19th century, 1860 something. So there is some copying going on, and there is great symbolism in what they wear, because in the Middle Ages, um, religion in the Middle Ages was all about sin. It was all about hell and damnation. And of course, if you were a sinner and you went to confession, the priest might say to you, Lee, you've been a very, very bad girl. So what you're going to do is you're going to walk around the streets of Santiago for a week dressed as a sinner, dressed as a penitent. The
Mm.
penitent is the word. And so you had to put on the dunce's hat because you were a figure of fun and people would laugh at you. That was your sentence for your sins. But they were allowed some anonymity. So they had a veil over their face, and of course they had to cut holes for their eyes and their mouth. And that's the derivation of this. So
Oh, thank
the
goodness
figure
things have changed.
things, things have certainly changed. Thank goodness.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, John, I was wondering, have there been any updates on there's been a lot of talk about the 100 kilometers change. Have you had any updates on that about getting your Compostela?
No, it is the way it is. What the pilgrim office are saying is, if you walk at least 70 kilometers within Spain, at least 70 kilometers within Spain, and you come to Santiago, no matter where you walk to 70 kilometers, has to be on a recognized route. So
Okay.
you might start off in Roncesvalles or Burgos and walk some 70 or 80 kilometers. Come to Santiago, then you have to walk the last stage on the Camino Frances. That would be from Pedroso.
Okay.
So I think this is a genuine effort that the Pilgrim Office has been making to examine ways of relieving the pressure on some of the points, particularly on routes like the Camino Frances
Yeah.
and the Camino Portugues. My own view is that people will not do that. If you
No.
set off to come to Santiago, you will walk to Santiago. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, anything else going on in Santiago this week?
Apart from the rain,
Yeah.
no.
Are you happy
No,
to be back?
I'm happy to be back. It was very nice to see everyone actually, and it's great to be back. I'm hearing from Bill that things are going very well in Germany. They're on a tour in Germany. They've got the film dubbed into German, and this is it starting to be translated into other languages.
Oh,
On the 16th of July, we have a showing of the film for everyone in the university. So all of the professors and students will be coming together. We'll see how that goes. Why don't you come over for that, Lee?
I've been thinking about it. You'll do that on July 16th in Santiago?
July 16th in Santiago, in the university.
That's wonderful. Any news on it being released to the world at some point, streaming
Well,
wise?
well, I'm reminded of Martin Sheen's film The Way,
Yeah,
which took ages to become available because they've got to sell this new product into cinemas.
yeah.
And I was talking, I was talking to one cinema operator in Canada, and I said to her, "How long will you keep this film showing?" And she said, "Well, there are 400 people here. This must be everybody who would be interested in it." And I said, "No, no, you have no idea. You have no idea. When pilgrims come back from pilgrimage, they talk to everybody about their experience on the Camino. So they talk to their family and their relatives and their friends, and you have no idea the level of interest out there in the Camino. And of course, in Tacoma, you discovered that as they kept the film going. So we
Yeah,
shall
I
see.
tell you, there's hardly a day that goes by that I don't talk about the Camino. And as soon as if anyone gets an inkling that I've had any involvement in it, the next thing they say is, I've always wanted to walk that.
Well,
Right? And it turns into a whole conversation, coffee dates and whatnot. And I tell you, my belief that the Camino is needed is stronger than ever after my return and setting up a home base back in the US. So, you know, everything that I can do to promote people going and taking their first walk or their 10th walk, I'm there because I think the world needs it right now. So
Uh, absolutely. And of course, the late John Brierley saw the Camino as the solution to many of the world's problems. If
that's
only
right.
we could persuade all of the politicians to walk the Camino, then society might be different. But of course, as Gandhi says, it starts with you and me.
That's
So
right.
we should walk the Camino. And out in the coastal route last week, I met some lovely, lovely people discovering the Camino experience for the first time. It was beautiful.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I think that's it for this week. We are going to check in with Rocco Rossi now. You and I will be back in 2 weeks' time. So enjoy the rest of your Easter week. It's so
And
good to see you.
hopefully by then, Lee, the sun will be shining outside.
I sure hope so.
We have a week of this rain, and then they say the sun is coming back.
Oh, I sure hope so for you. Well, we will see you in 2 weeks to get the latest updates from Santiago and everything al Camino. Take
Take
care.
care of yourself, Lee.
You too. Let's hear from another pilgrim that's just walked into Santiago 2 days ago, and that is fan favorite Camino News Update contributor Rocco Rossi. What number Camino is this? Have you kept count?
Well, I've come to Spain, Portugal, or France 21 times since 2002.
So, Rocco, what keeps you coming back? Because you've walked. I think we were talking the other day. There's 80,000 kilometers of Camino in Spain, and you've walked quite a few of those. What keeps you coming back? What makes you want to do another one?
It's interesting, people who ask me that question, I ask, do you have a good friend? And they say yes. And I said, do you ever want to visit them just once in your life? Do you like chocolate cake and pizza? Can you stop at one piece and never eat them again? If you find something in your life that brings you joy, that brings you clarity, that energizes you, the real question is, why aren't you doing it more than once? And for me, the Camino is like that message at the beginning of every flight. In case of decompression, masks will fall from the ceiling. make sure you put it on yourself before you try to help anyone else.
Today's show is going to close out with a very special video that Johnnie made about Easter week in Santiago. that's a wrap. We are so excited to be back with you at Camino News Update. Thank you for being a part of our Camino family. We can't wait to see you on the path. Until then, ciao, pilgrims.